I've seen some of the strongest swimmers I know drown under the relentless waves of pressure and sadness that life and society place upon them. Yet, I've also witnessed people endure the greatest heartaches and emerge transformed, stronger, wiser, more loving, kinder, and finally at peace. There's a Buddhist quote I always return to: a wise man, even in misery, can still find happiness. It's a truth I hold close. I sometimes walk the streets alone, watching people live their day-to-day lives, and I wonder, what experiences have shaped them into who they are today? You can never truly know the weight someone carries in their heart. Some mask it well, while others shine brighter in moments of darkness, choosing joy and hope over defeat and despair. I've learned to make drowning look like swimming, to turn pain into joy, hoping that if I tricked the cosmos, it might be gentler with me. Years ago, I made a pact with myself. I'd allow myself to cry and grieve, but I'd never stop moving forwards. If I keep this steady pace, the breeze will gently take my tears. There's something deeply profound about the way art and spirituality intertwine. In our darkest moments, we instinctively reach for them. Through a brushstroke, in poetry, a melody, yoga and meditation, a whispered prayer, or simply a moment of stillness, we find solace. They become our lifelines, reminding us that even in pain, there is beauty, connection, and a path to healing.
I don't believe that you should show strength all the time. I think you should be vulnerable. And I actually more express vulnerability in my art than strength to me. Personally, that's what I believe. People can view it how they are because I think my pieces are actually quite strong in the sense that if you looked at them as a viewer, as audience, you would think, especially with the nails and the colors choices, which are very graphic and bold, they probably do promote strength. But to me, they're actually promoting my vulnerability, my pain, my suffering, the traumas I've been through. I'm Jameel Hyatt, live here in Chiang Mai, originally from Los Angeles, 59 years old, and I'm an artist and a writer. I think as a very young child, um, I I'll backtrack a little bit. So art was just always who I was. Creative was who I was. But I grew up in a traumatic childhood, which we could talk about a little more. And art was always my outlet for that. It allowed me to express myself in ways that I didn't know I could express myself, to release that trauma, the anger, those things. And I didn't know that at the time, obviously. I know that now as an adult. But I think that's definitely what drew me even further into the art and exploring my own creativity. But I remember as a very young child creating my own comic books, make my own little sculptures, doing paintings. I would stay in my room much more than I'd be outside playing with friends. Always. So my upbringing, I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in 1965, dates me a bit, but I grew up in LA in an area called East Los Angeles, a little bit rougher part of LA, if you will. And my family, I have two younger siblings, mother and father, and we lived in a very modest house in this neighborhood. And so my family was always at odds with itself, I'll say, but that's saying nicely because there was always violence within my household, physical, mental, emotional violence. And there was always trauma, there was always conflict. But art became such a important part of my life because, as I said, it helped me express those things, but it just continued. So art became not just a thing to do, it became my best friend. It became my confidant, like where I couldn't talk to other children about what I was experiencing at home. Uh, you know, my painting listened. My hand through my paint listened. That helped me get through those times when I thought, especially when you're in your teenage years, because none of that stopped. It would just continue. Which this is kind of the implosion, or the negative space of what this explosion would be, is just this. You can see that. This one's one of my favorites. So even in my teen years, when you think, with the world is on your shoulders and everything's going to come to an end, as the teenagers do, art was the one true stable thing in my life that I could always look to, that would support me, that would listen to me, that would help me get through day by day by day. And art kept me alive. I really feel that, because otherwise, going through those time periods, especially in your teen years, I contemplated suicide a lot, because there was so much trauma in my household. Besides my own household, it extended beyond my household. For example, all of my uncles were in prison for various crimes, and this was just an ongoing thing it was quote unquote normal, which is scary to say, but that was my life. What brought us to Chiang Mai was my wife, Hilsi Pena, and I were previous Disney Imagineers, and we were living in Hong Kong, and she was still on a project, and I had been let off the projects during COVID. There was another story there. But Hong Kong was never our intended final destination, if you will. And just so happens, in February of 2020, COVID took over the world. So everything fell in line for us, as people were suffering during that time. For us, as strange as this may sound, COVID actually started to implement our goals and our dream. We always had this in mind, Thailand, because we love the vibe, we love the culture, the people, the food. So we said, well, let's think about moving to Chiang Mai. And we saw this property, La Bonita. It wasn't La Bonita at the time, it was the name of another resort called Sanjana. And we saw the beautiful roof line, and since Hilsi is an architect, we said, let's go check this out. Let's go be nosy looky-loos. So we drove through the rice fields, and when we saw this beautiful place, our jaws both dropped, and we looked at each other and said, wow. Then when we met the owners here that day, they fell in love with us, we fell in love with them, we fell in love with the place. And after touring the place just that day, we both looked at each other and said, maybe we could be hotel owners. So the stars aligned. We took this place on and said, well, we may never make money on this hotel. That's okay. We just want to break even to be able to live here and just enjoy the pool and the food and make it our home and open our home up to guests. And so this is how La Bonita Chiang Mai came to be. So in 2023, in October of 23, I was diagnosed with laryngeal cancer. That same month is when we discovered La Bonita, which would be La Bonita. So we had discussion and said, should we still do it? And I said, hell yeah, let's just, whatever happens, happens. At least let's just say we want to do it, because our goal in life has always been to create something out of passion, not out of profit, and to make something beautiful that we both enjoy and are proud of. That's it. That's why we made this place. We didn't know how bad the cancer was going to be, had no idea. November and December, I went through 6 rounds of chemotherapy, 33 rounds of radiation, and it was beyond torture. It was the most painful thing I've experienced in my life. It felt like razor blades. I was swallowing razor blades every day. I got addicted to liquid morphine because there was no other way to get through it. But once I got out and we were back here in La Bonita, and as painful as recovery was, because it's still a year later, I'm still in recovery. When I wake up every morning, I look out the windows and I see the rice fields and the sun rising. And I think to myself, where else would I want to heal? Where else do I want to recover? I have an art studio here. I have this incredible apartment, Hilcia and our little dog, Tommy. And where else could I be? Nowhere. And so, this has helped me heal. Because I look at my life and the hard part of my life, which has been, the trauma growing up as a childhood and all the pain I've had to deal with. And I'm crying because I'm happy. Because I never thought, as this kid from East LA, I never even thought I could make it out of there. I thought for sure I'd just be dead back in LA with all the stuff around me. And yet here I am, I'm thriving in paradise. Another place, another country that welcomes me. This community welcomes me. And we've made amazing friends here. And all of that, if we hadn't been here, I don't think I'd heal the way I've been healing, as hard as it's been. And it's hard. There was a lot of times people, we put on a smiling face for our guests, of course, and we talk about it. I'm still very open with them. But they still don't see the part I've had to suffer through here. And if we didn't have this place, and if I didn't have my art, I don't know where I'd be. Because I can lose myself, at least in my paper sculptures and my paintings. I can go 8 hours, and at least that's an 8-hour day that I'm not thinking about this. Instead, I'm just letting things out of me. And so this place is not just a place for me. This place is like a character. It's a personality. It's become a place of healing, for sure.
My name is Samantha from New York in the States, and I've been living and working in Chiang Mai, Thailand for the past 6 years. Yoga found me about a year into my time here in Chiang Mai, and I was feeling quite alone. I hadn't found my people yet, so I was uncertain. And being an identical twin, I always identified myself in a connection to somebody else. So being here alone was tricky for me to navigate. So I heard chanting one day at the base of my apartment building where I was living at the time, and I was intrigued. I said, oh, I should try a class. And then, bam, ever since that moment, I was drawn back to this one studio and my teacher, Kruwina. And yeah, I just felt at home there with her and the yogis. One of my earliest experiences with yoga was right before COVID had happened. So COVID started to take over, and Weena and the other ladies were quite nervous, so they closed the studio. And we found Zoom yoga. So we'd all meet online and we would watch Weena's videos together and practice yoga together online. For me, it was refreshing because I had just found yoga. I was at home in the studio, and then it all closed down. So initially for me, that was a big moment. So when I was teaching in America, me and my sister had a lot of time off, so we'd always travel. And coming down to Southeast Asia was the cheapest option, especially back then. And we came to Chiang Mai twice, and it just felt like home. It's so slow, and the people are friendly, the nature. So when I decided to move abroad, instantly I said, okay, I'll go to Chiang Mai for a year. And 6 years later, I'm still here. For me, yoga has been a big anchor in my life. It's what makes me feel grounded. on the day to day. So whether it's a good moment, if I'm having a hard time, I know I can come to my mat. I can let go of the past or worrying about the future and be present. Because I always think of this one quote where it's something like, yoga brings you into the present moment, the only moment where life truly exists. So for me, yoga does that. There was one class for me where the yoga teacher said this mantra of, let go of everything that happened today. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And as soon as she said that, something in me shifted and I instantly felt this grounding feeling. And then we all took child's pose where you're face down on your mat and you're surrendering to the moment. So growing up, I'm an identical twin and we have a very close relationship. We've been best friends. We've done everything together, from activities when we were little to university. We were the same major. We traveled together. We even worked together at the same school in New York. So when I decided to move away, it was a big journey for me to work on my identity as a twin in like a twinless environment. So for me, when I moved here, it was definitely hard because I didn't know how to think about life, how to just exist and make friends on my own without relying on my twin. So my first year here, even before yoga, I was kind of lost and didn't have my people yet, and I just felt so alone. And it was the first time being alone without her. And the time difference was 12 hours. So even if I was sad in the morning, I couldn't always call because it was the middle of the night. So yeah, it was a struggle. And then once I found yoga, it was like I had something for me. And it didn't have anything to do with my identity as a twin. It was something that I was doing for me by myself. And so it became like my ritual almost, where I would go every day after work, regardless of if I was tired or cranky or in a good mood. It was just my place. And I really found a home within myself. And that was the biggest thing with yoga, is not feeling at home anywhere and without my family and without my sister. But then I realized that home is within myself. And if I can just be comfortable and happy and at peace, I can do it alone. So I met my partner, Nicola, my soon-to-be wife, in Chiang Mai. We bonded during a bad experience at an international school together. So it brought us together. It keeps us together, we joke, because then we end up getting a dog and we have a house and we're in it. But yeah, also with Nicola, I was never in a same-sex couple relationship. So we were best friends, had a big crush on her. And it was mutual crushing. And then to shift and to ruin our friendship and start dating was a big deal. And for us both at the same time, we kind of did it together in the sense where we came out to our parents at the same time. We introduced each other to our families and we were met with such grace and acceptance. We're so lucky for that. And yeah, now she became my home. So my support system here, a lot of it is me and my partner, Nicola, and our dog, Moon, our family. But I've also found a community with my yoga group. So it's a few ladies, mostly Thai women and myself, that get together every day at 4:30 at our teacher's house, and we practice together. So our friendship is very much us practicing yoga together, laughing at ourselves and at each other in a very safe space. So we don't have like the typical friendship where we're going out for dinner and things like that, but every day we see each other and we have that bond of loving yoga. Friendships here, I found to be difficult to not only make but maintain, because it's very transient, in Chiang Mai especially. People are always coming and going, and I've made such good friends, and then sometimes they leave. So being okay with that, but also not cutting myself off from making new friends when certain friends have to leave. And then thinking back to my time with my family and now living as like a long distance daughter, it's a challenge. It makes me grateful for technology, that I can call them and FaceTime, but it is hard being so far away. But I'm lucky that they do visit and I do get to go home once a year. But it is hard being an expat here, seeing friends, get married and have babies and missing out on that. And when I think back to like my close relationships with my girlfriends at home, where I think I took for granted back then, just being like, hey, I'm outside, like, let's have dinner. And now, even to arrange phone calls is checking time zones and schedules. So that's hard. But I think it's part of the trade-off of living a life that I love and I'm grateful for here, but you also have to give up some luxuries and safe connections with family. So I have two favorite mantras or like yogi sayings I like to say. So every class we always greet each other with namaste. And for me, I'm not sure of the literal translation, but from what I've heard in the yogi community, is it like you're bowing and you're saying that like the light in me honors and respects the light in you. So for me, that's something I like to think of with everyone I come into interactions with, not just yogis, but just accepting people for who they are, giving people space to open up if they need to, and just respecting others. And one of my favorite mantras that I hear a lot in yoga is like, you're exactly where you need to be, or wherever you are, be all there. So that's something that I've taken to heart because I like to remember, like, I can feel sad about being so far away from home and missing my family, but, I'm here and I can't think too much or get too sad about it because I need to also be present here, be happy in this moment. And, and yeah, just know that, right now is enough. I always would recommend people to try yoga because yoga is really about you and your practice, and whether you are flexible or not flexible, whether you are very fit or not fit, yoga is for everybody because yoga is just you and your practice. And it's making time to be present, to ground yourself, to just feel at home in your own body, in your mind, in your spirit. And yoga can really just transform your space in your mind, the space you hold for yourself, the way you look at the world, because it teaches you to kind of slow down, to respect everything around you and to just be. Hope for me is just remembering that life is constantly changing and evolving, that even when the days feel the same and like things are a bit slow or uncertain, that there's always going to be good to come. And if things are not great right now, things will always get better. And when things are really good, you have to also accept that that also won't last forever. So being okay with the flows and the way things change and just going with the flow and giving yourself grace. I think that's a big thing. It's not being too hard on yourself. I would just say that I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share this space with you and to be a part of something that's going to change so many lives, and being able to tell my story and talk about yoga, which has helped me so much. And I hope that it helps others because yoga is a beautiful way to just connect, be present, and just enjoy life.
I think I've always felt like I've been misunderstood. I think it's just a general thing in my life. And when I was young, I think I really struggled with it. I found out I was dyslexic, and that obviously, when you're young, you don't really understand what it means. To be honest with you, like it's taken me years to really understand what it means. But it's just like you're clustered. Things don't make sense. People don't necessarily make sense. Things like words and stuff, and it's like frustration. And I think that I, for years, I didn't put two and two together with what actually that was for me, and how you just feel different, like you don't think in the same way, you don't see whatever. And also finding out later on in life that like you have ADHD, which would have made perfect sense. Like perfect sense. And I think from that, the reason that I claimed art and fell into it was because there's no right or wrong with art. Like it can be something and it have no meaning to it and it's fine. It can be all the meanings and it's still fine. It's just, it doesn't have to have a name. And I think that kind of allowed me to kind of navigate around it in the same way that I navigate around myself. Like I wasn't, my childhood, you know, I had a lovely childhood, but there was everything that happened to me in my childhood was to do with my own actions and me trying to work out what I was about. And sometimes that takes you somewhere that you shouldn't be going. Sometimes that takes you, well, it takes you everywhere. It's a journey, isn't it? But I think I wasn't, a lot of where I found art was anger, like it just was. And quite a lot of pain as well, because I think that when you don't have a reason to like fuck shit up, it takes you somewhere completely different. And like when you're naive to things and you're not thinking about things properly, it takes you to these really dark and like lonely places. And also you meet people that are also dark and lonely, so it's like everything attracts to it. So I think art for me was always like a way of like processing things that I wasn't able to maybe write down or even say it to myself. Like I was doing art when I was little, like a child, like drawing little like stick people and stuff like that. And my mum was always massive on us drawing and stuff, and so was my grandparents. But yeah, I think it definitely didn't come from a good place. It wasn't a good place that it came from. So the piece that I think is really that means a lot to me in the exhibition and is very transformative is Moo with the Magnolias, and it's based on my mum. So I like years ago, my mum showed me this picture. She found a picture of her like in these gorgeous little shoes and this little white dress, dancing, and like my relationship with my mum is without a doubt one of the most resilient. Like, you know, I brought up on it earlier. I wasn't an easy teenager, and I like did a lot of self-sabotaging, and I did a lot of like harmful stuff. And like I was just feral. I just was feral. And I think me and my mum are just polar opposites, like polar opposites. And our relationship has been one of the most, I would say, difficult and powerful relationships in my life. Like I'm so lucky to have her as a mother. And I don't say it lightly because like I've hated her. Like I've hated my mum. And I felt so unseen by her sometimes and so misunderstood by her. And I think that like I keep going on to that theme of feeling misunderstood, but when you're around someone so much and they're still not seeing you, it's like you just want to run from it and you just don't want to be around it. And like teenagers are hard enough, but like having that, you know, on top of it, and like my mum not owning certain things and me not owning certain things anyway, the older I got, the more I realized, you know, my grandma Rini was, like I said, brought up in Wales by a mother who, you know, who loved her children, but, you know, like we were told of like they had no money, so like their life was complete. They had nothing. Sometimes they wouldn't be able to eat. Sometimes they would all have to hide from the social services. That's Rini. You see the boobs are out. And then these are just kind of like the prints before I hand draw them. This is Gwen. My relationship with my mother is one of the most proud, like I'm saying, it just makes me so unbelievably proud because it isn't a fairy tale. It's not like this magical, like, you know, like mother and daughter. It's like two women who are just really struggling to see one another, but just love each other. And, you know, this piece of work is basically the magnolias. It's a pink magnolia, and it basically means like youth, innocence, and joy. And it's kind of giving my mum the ability to go back to that point where she could just dance like a child and not be scrutinized or worry that, you know, people are judging her or anything that happens when you live your life long enough to have doubt. And it's reclaiming for her, you know? And I think it meant a lot doing that piece because we've been through a lot, and I'm difficult with her, and I know, yeah, I'm just difficult with her, and I know that sometimes I must be hard to love for her, but so is she, you know? So the artistic technique that I think I was inspired by, which was the lino printing. It's really interesting because I don't really put two and two together with it, but obviously lino printing stems from wood carving, and in Romany culture, like obviously you hand carve your caravans and you put like all stories around it. So it kind of makes sense why it's like I'm like so connected with it, because I love the ability to like have something for a moment, and the second you touch it, it changes the whole thing. So like if you carve into it, I mean, like I've been working a lot with my fiance, with him doing my prints, you know, and he's been really, really amazing with it. But you can see like the second that you carve something different, you've changed the whole piece. The whole thing's changed. The person's changed. Like, and I think I love that because it's just exactly the same as life. You can't change what's going to happen. Like, you can be as like pedantic as you want carving out a line, but it's going to give a character of some sort to it. And I think that's why I'm really connected with lino, because it's harsh. Like, it's hard. And if you cut yourself with it, honey, you know about it. The most I have ever learned in my life, it's never comes like all of my best lessons, it's never been from happiness and, you know, like all this stuff. It's from pure anger and pure pain. It's from like despair and like feeling like there is nothing that's going to get better, and then it does, and then that's it. It's like how low you have to go to then know that how great you would have gone high. Like, it's all waves, and I think the process is the same. You have to feel something to be able to connect, because if you're just completely not, if you're just making something for the reason of making it, I salute you. But I feel like I'm too emotionally damaged, maybe. Maybe that I want to give something. I want to give you a little snippet of something that I'm born from but isn't mine. If Rini was at the exhibition, she knew things, and I think it was giving her that, and like also like telling her the names of why, like, you know, I named one after my auntie who Rowena, who taught me so much about being, you know, she was dyslexic, but she's also an artist. So having that ability to kind of firsthand see how someone else is dealing with it and using art as a method of like regaining. You know, she had her own struggles. So I think if I had Rini there walking around with me, and she's always walking around with me, honey. She's always behind. She's always with me. Like, they all are. They all are. I think that being able to just thank them, I suppose, for what they had to go through to get me here. I think that I get emotional about it because my grandma, like, I remember, like, she died when I was 18, and she had like the softest hands, and her hands are like the thing, like, and because she had the Welsh accent, and she just I just know, like, I just know she'd just be so proud. I know all of them would be, but I know Rini would just be so proud, and like, and the real thing that we should be proud of is her, because, you know, she lived until like she was 80, and, you know, like she'd gone through so much, and that's who we should be proud of. You know, it's not me doing some artwork, it's them. All the best people are weird. Every single person who is cool or is like worth getting to know has got something weird about them. And like weird's an interesting word as well, because what is weird? Weird is fucking cool. But like it's like every person who is like the best people I've ever met in my life have got something that you're like, woo, makes you a bit like tweaky, right? And that's awesome. It should be like that. Imposter syndrome is an interesting one, because it's like I can sit here and I can say all this stuff, but it's still a daily struggle to remind yourself. Some days, like I'm saying, some days I'm like, yeah, I get it, you're killing it. But some days it's also like, but I also will say that you can like you can listen to podcasts, we can look at whatever, you can listen to therapy books about it. But I genuinely believe that like sometimes that part, and I think we've discussed this before, sometimes that part actually makes me continue to want to grow. It forces me to be like, no, you got to get better at this, you got to do this better. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's perfectionism, I would say it's just like a need to continue to grow from it, because you're like, there's other people doing this and I need to be following it, I need to be getting better, I need to be driving and forcing it. Like I think from this exhibition, like I love lino, and I've always done it as a therapy vibe. Like the work that like my next venture is going back to being like stinking of white spirit and oil paints. Like watch me. But large scale, like I haven't worked large scale in such a long time, and I think that like I need to get back onto that, and like the rawness, because like canvas is something completely different. Canvas is like, it's like a diary that you're just constantly going over and going over. You can see every expression on it. Lino's the same, but oil is like a moment, because you can capture a face in oil. In printing, it's a moment, it's a memory, but in oil, it's forever. You got that. So yeah, I think that's the next step for me.
It's hard because in reflection, it almost feels as though I've always had to survive. It always feels like I've been presented and put in situations that you shouldn't be put in as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. We all have to experience things in life, and it's not always easy to kind of overcome things. Survival to me feels like, as long as I can get through the end of the week, that's okay, you know? It kind of feels like that at times. But now, after having like at least 2 years of stability-ish, it feels as though the next 5 years won't be so much of a struggle. But it's because I've changed my perspective, I've changed my focus, and I've changed my priority. And it's more, I'm prioritizing myself now out of a need to have to, and a realization that no one is going to look out for you better than you yourself can. And I have spent a lot of time trying to help others before myself, meaning I've had to survive. But now, hopefully, there's a point in which I am able to prioritize my own needs before others, and we'll hopefully not be needing to survive on the bare brinks of life anymore. But you know, it's not even that. Like, you know, there are people who have it a lot worse, and there are people, you know, we're all very different, and every one person's story and experience is unique. My name is Michael. I'm from Manchester, and my creative passion is music. I spent my early 20s, well, my 20s, performing in professional orchestras around the world. And alongside performing, I was also producing a lot of the time, and running larger ensembles and groups. And when I finished being a student, I kind of continued doing producing and putting on concerts, but then decided to really take the plunge after being involved in lots of pop concerts that I could see were selling thousands more tickets than classical concerts, and was really interested in finding a way to bring music to different audiences and reinvent the orchestra slightly. So I started the orchestra in 2020. It was a concept. I knew that I wanted to do something different that wasn't like an Ibiza classical show, because I'd already played in one of those. And there was, I could definitely see the potential for engagement in this changing of genre. So I conceptualized to do an R&B show, which was around 2018, 2019. And then we shot the concept video in January 2020. And then obviously we went into lockdown and had our time of reflection and rest during the pandemic. And we scheduled the first show to be in September 2021 after a couple of reschedules. And it felt for me really that was a time to go full force with it. And the orchestra's been operating since September 2021. We're 3.5 years into it now, and it can really feel like there's a sustainable future with it. I suppose that when you're reflecting on the sort of involvement that I have with music, since the age of 12, I've always played in orchestras, and that has been an activity of a collection of people that has stayed with me throughout my whole life. So people play football in teams, people play other sports in teams. For me, there's nothing more like working as a group as playing in an orchestra. And it's something that I'm where I can bring people together, but also you're presenting and you're giving something to others, and something that is stirred from and starts within. From your first breath, when you breathe and then you exhale, you're giving something to your audience, and then you receive your applause back, and it's a very two-way situation. And I think that's a very important thing to remember when presenting art and music. So with my education, growing up as a teenager, everything I received was free. So I got my music lessons for free, I got my instrument hire for free, all of my enrollment into county services was free. So I was at a Saturday music school, I was at a Sunday ensemble day, I was enrolled with everything in my school and in other schools around the county, and all of that was at no cost. So moving forward into my mind is that it has to be given back as a free service to people in the community, for people to be able to access this in a way that is adapted to the 21st century into 2025. Things aren't the same how they were in 2001, and there is still a way to give for free and to give back, but it just has to adapt and change. And it's something that has stayed with me because it is the way that I was able to do what I'm doing now, and it wouldn't be possible if that hadn't been free. So for me, it feels important to continue that giving, basically. With the saxophone, it just feels a very free instrument. I think like many people who were growing up in the 90s, they were hearing Lisa Simpson playing the saxophone on The Simpsons. And I remember being even like 4 or 5 years old and watching things on TV and just being really drawn to the classical music side of things. My ears would pick up and I would immediately be able to identify the instruments that I was hearing without any education on it. I would be able to tell that this instrument was a flute and this instrument was whatever. And I was always inquisitive about sound. And it's strange, isn't it? Because I don't come from a musical family where music was thrusted upon me and I wasn't told or directed through a path into music. I was one that I found independently, but I was supported through. Um, and it's strange that I was drawn to the woodwind instruments, and be it the saxophone and also predominantly the oboe as my main study. So my kind of coming into sort of sound healing and sound waves all came about a couple of years ago when I was going through a lot of trauma, and I was heading through my second nervous breakdown in the space of 6 months, after being the victim of quite a lot of crime and being the victim of just a lot of bad stuff kind of came my way. I was homeless, and I was really not having a good time adapting to a new way of life. A lot of my friends had disappeared. They just kind of had moved out and done their own, uh, pursued their own things, and friendships kind of, very fluid. But when you put a lot on your friendships, it's hard when they're no longer there, especially when you're going through a time of need. And it was a time where I was very isolated and very alone. And I was kind of very aware of what I was going through, because obviously I was feeling it a lot. And I managed to kind of get back to living in a house and being stable. And my body kind of did something unintentional that I didn't know it could do. And I realized I was suffering from PTSD, and it was basically shell shock. And I was having a lot of trauma releases through vibration. And I started to discover things like meditation and how to relax. But the more I relaxed, the more I would involuntarily start vibrating and convulsing and like just shaking, basically. And there came an experience where I started meditating in the shower, and I was being stimulated by the hot water hitting my heart. And then I went and saw a Reiki healer, and she told me that I had unlocked my heart chakra unintentionally, and still started to talk to me about cymatic healing and sound waves, and how they can penetrate the body and muscles, and our chakra, our energy points within our body have certain frequencies in which they vibrate. And I started to notice it in my teaching when people were playing, parts of my body would be vibrating. And it was at that point of sort of reflection that I started to realize that my whole life, from the age of 12, having been put in orchestras, I had been experiencing vibrational healing. When you realize actually that you've been living your life very anxiously, and you've had a lot of internalized anxiety and depression and not feeling 100% all the time, music for me was an escape when I was growing up. And it was very much a way to express myself and what I was drawn to. But whether it helps me or whether I find it a relaxing thing anymore is very different. Because I actually had to stop playing because I was too anxious to play, going through all of that stuff. And I'm still not quite at a place where I look at my instrument and I'm like, this is going to bring me joy, or this is going to bring me relaxation. At times it's like, this is work and this is my job, but it's also who I am. And I could never be anything more or anything less or anything else, because I wouldn't know how to be anything else. I haven't got any qualifications outside of music, and I have not achieved in anything else except music. What's quite interesting is to find that running the orchestra has obviously had to allow me to have lots of different other skill sets. I've learned lots about marketing and lots of other things. But when it all does boil down to it being about music and it being the best and the best standard that it can be, So whether that becomes as a healing thing is quite strange, because obviously it is my livelihood and it does provide that comfort when living in a secure home and I'm being able to eat and stuff like that. It does bring that comfort, but it also brings a lot of anxiety with it. So sometimes coming to the instrument when I'm not needing to, it's nice to be away from it at times. Um, but it's different. The relationship has changed, and where I'm at now in my mid-30s, I don't have that excitement like I used to have, but I still have love for it, if that makes sense. And I would miss it if it wasn't there. I think for me to be able to live a life without anxiety, I can't invite it in. So if something invokes a reaction of anxiety, I have to listen to that. And I have to understand why that feeling is there and how it's come to be. So if someone is causing my energy to be negative, or if they're causing a sleepless night for me, or if they're causing me to have a panic attack, anything like that, I have to understand that that's something I can't engage with and not something that I want to engage with. And it's not a purpose of just putting people out of your life. It's a purpose, it's more of a sake of listening to your own needs and just making sure that you give people a chance and you allow people there, but you communicate how you're feeling. But at the end of the day, we are only in control of ourselves. And if someone has continually caused a negative reaction internally to yourself, then you have to listen to that and you have to respect yourself and you have to say, is this the right thing for me? And it's only in the last year or two, because of all of these bad experiences, that I feel like I've had the strength to be able to say, well, actually, this isn't causing me a good feeling, so I need to express that. Whereas before I would internalize everything, I would take it on and keep it, and I'd just stay anxious the whole time, and I would just spiral out of control, basically. I really had about 5 years of declining mental health to the point of having 2 nervous breakdowns. I'm sure everyone has had bad times, but to the point where you feel like there isn't an escape and you feel like the only way out is suicide. You have to really think that I can't put myself in that position where you're wanting to kill yourself, if that makes sense, because that's an internal reason. We have an internal world, there's an external world, and looking after the internal world is important as much as looking out for the external world. And it feels that for me to enable my growth and to what I want to keep my focuses on, I only want to focus on making a positive impact and making a positive difference. And anything else, I'm just not really that interested in engaging with. And if it's gonna invoke my anxiety, I have to listen to that and just remove myself. And then other things like not getting so out of control drunk that you don't know what's going on around you. Bit of growth there, not putting yourself in vulnerable positions where you are left in a silly position. It's really hard to talk to people sometimes, especially if you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to. But it really is a problem shared is a problem halved, for sure. As soon as I knew that I needed to reach out for help, doing so made me survive and get through. So it was a conscious choice that I felt like I had to make, either do the unthinkable or go and ask for some help. And going and asking for help was the right step to do. And if your it's easy to feel like your mental health won't get better, but it does. It does when you start to talk about it and reach for that help. And I got to a point where it had been maybe 3.5 years of decline. and I was like at my end, and I wasn't able to take on any more. And then I went and sought some help, and then things got even worse. And that's when I ended up being the victim of a lot of crime and was homeless and had another nervous breakdown. And then I got to the point of complete disassociation, and something just kept me going. And it was this spiritual encounter or whatever it was that kind of pulled me through, basically. And it's understanding now that life will still present challenges, but it's how you build your armor against it, basically, and how you are able to take it on and not let it hit you as hard, water off a duck's back, basically. It now feels like I don't need to survive anything worse than what has just happened. Nothing can be as bad as what happened in 2022. So bring it on. Basically, it kind of feels like that, but it's more of a chance of like, once you've overcome the worst, you can only get the best, basically. And it's use it as a fuel rather than as a reason to not keep fighting and be stronger. My plan is to get the Orchestra Global, basically. My ambition and motivation and purpose now feels justified, and it feels amplified as well. Having gone through so much and experiencing what I can only describe as probably the worst thing you could ever go through, or a person can go through, it feels like it has to be 100%. The extremeness of my feelings have only been put into my work. So the more I put out, the more kind of feedback I get. And it's always just positive feedback now from people. I don't feel like anyone really criticizes what is put out. But even if there is a criticism, it's obviously justified, and it's obviously there for a reason. But the confidence that I have now in my own abilities and my own outputs, my creative outputs, were never there before, which they are now. So my ambition is just on fire right now, and the potential and the possibility feel like something that is attainable, And yeah, the manifestation of working globally is going to happen this year, and that's really, really great to feel that focus of energy into this constructive, consistent thing is paying off.
So my name is Shadia Wright. I'm from Leicester originally. I live in Birmingham currently, and I own an aesthetics clinic, and I'm currently studying my nursing degree, mental health. So I would say my childhood wasn't the easiest of childhoods. My mum was a single parent. There was 5 of us. We didn't have much. We grew up in a council estate, council background. Our road was Deepdale, actually. We had really good neighbours. I remember we used to have these neighbours that used to come across the road all the time. They was always hungry. They always used to knock the door and ask for biscuits. And we didn't even have much, but we would still give them biscuits. But at the age of 15, my stepdad always used to call me Shadia the baddie, because I was in survival mode. So I remember my mum used to drink quite a bit, but she was going through depression because she lost my dad when she was pregnant with me. So a month before I was born, he died July the 4th. I was born August. So she lost him, and I feel like she was going through a spiral moment. But 15, just probably leaving school, I used to go and I used to shoplift, to be honest. I shoplifted. I remember I used to go to Quick Save. Sometimes we'd never have like we'd have cheese, but no like bread or no butter, or like it wasn't like a hot. My mum did as much as she could, and we had like we survived, and there would be days where she would spend all her money on shopping, but because we was one of five and I had two older brothers and they used to like eat us out of house and home, there was times where we just was in survival mode, and I would like go to Quick Save with a shopping list. I used to take a trolley, but because I knew my mum was struggling, the money that she'd give me, I used to nick extra stuff for the house for us to actually survive off, if that makes sense. So I'd be walking around the shops, like if the cheese would be expensive, I'd put that in the bag. Or I used to nick the gold bars because that was like a treat. So I feel like, yeah, it was just kind of survival mode, survival of the fittest, really. So losing my brother, I remember I was actually at my auntie's villa, and it was a day before. It was really weird because it was a day before we flew back, and I remember the flight wasn't until like 5 o'clock in the morning. But I was cleaning so frantically, and like there was something going on, and in my head, like I was cleaning and hoovering and mopping. And I remember Simon, my partner at the time, and would say, he said, "Are you on speed or something?" I said, "Are you joking?" And he's like, "Why are you moving erratically?" In those times there, it's weird because I'd heard that Emmett possibly died around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And those times there, I was cleaning and doing, I couldn't sleep. There was just something that night, I just couldn't sleep at all. And I remember like wiping down the sides, making sure everything was empty, making sure the fridge was empty, emptying the milk out, because obviously it was my auntie's villa and we was cleaning down before we flew back. And I just couldn't rest. So we flew back into Birmingham. My sister doesn't really call me a lot. And I remember getting all these calls from my sister. I had her under Shashakika. I was thinking, why is she ringing me? And then I answered the call, and I remember getting that call, and I thought it was actually my nana, because she was like, "Shadia, um, there's something happened. I've got something to tell you." I was like, "What? Is it Nana?" And she went, "No, it's Emmett." And I was like, "What do you mean it's Emmett?" And then it's like, I didn't, it's like at the time I was at the airport, and it's so noisy in an airport, but it just went like quiet and I couldn't hear. It was like I went deaf. And I remember sitting down on a wall, and she said, "Emmett's died." I said, "No, he can't have died." I said, there's there's no way, like he must be okay, he must be at the hospital." And she was like, "No, he's died." And then I just remember trying to get through that airport as quick as I can. And it's funny because when I was going through passport control, they must know and must have training for things like this, because when people are on the plane, you're in flight mode, you don't have no service. So I was crying. It's like the security could sense something was going wrong. So somebody approached me from passport control and said, "Is everything okay?" I said, "No, my brother's died. I need to get out of this airport." They literally rushed me through passport control, took my kids, took the baggage. I just came straight out. I remember the Met security guy was with me. There was another passport person. I was like, "I just need a cigarette. I need a cigarette. I need to get out." I just got really claustrophobic, sat outside. I remember having a cigarette, and it's like it was still deaf. I was still deaf. I weren't paying attention to what was going on. It's like you go into this moment of not, it's like you freeze, but you can't see what's happening around you. It's really weird. Um, and then I remember just, I don't even know how we was already in Birmingham, but it was so quick from the transition to the house to drop the stuff to get to Leicester. And I remember just getting to Leicester. I wasn't able to see him. And yeah, because my sister found him and he died by suicide. So for me, I don't really feel like I've ever really got over Emmett. I've never dealt with that trauma fully because it was like my brother and we wasn't ready to say bye to him. So for me, healing, I've never healed from it. I'm a busy person and I kept myself busy to heal in a way, because even sitting here talking about it now, it's like it's still unreal, because I used to hear him, like he used to do this. He used to listen to Craig Mack and he used to rap in my ear like, "Craig Mack, 1,000 degrees, you'll be on your knees and you'll be burning me." So I used to just hear him rap to me all the time, and it's just weird because that person's just gone. So So I feel like being from a family of 5 and not having, like, I'll just be raw, like, my brother was an alcoholic. My brother suffered with substances, crack, cocaine. He's been in jail most of his life. He's done a 16-year IPP sentence. I remember he used to be round the corner in a car and he used to have this big yellow bubble jacket on. And I used to sneak in sandwiches out because my mum kicked him out the house because she's like, I can't have this under the roof. And stuff used to go missing, like not really had money or anything, but Nathan was going through his own childhood trauma. And I feel like for us, for me, I've always had that caring side where I thought I can't let my brother sleep in a car. And I used to just try and please everybody and help everybody. And I think growing up and watching what I've seen, like my mum drinking, my brother doing that, you kind of go into survival mode. And for me, I always knew that wasn't the life that I wanted. This wasn't the life that I was going to have. And no matter what or how I'm going to get it, I'm getting it. And I feel like you're like an Olympic where you keep training and training and training till you reach that goal. And for me, I was just not going to give up. However, like I used to shoplift. I would sell, I'd sold things I wasn't even happy about selling. Like I used to sell Ann Summers clothes to working girls that was working in saunas. Like I'd sold Spasher SIM cards. I used to work for Network Free. I'd sold SIM cards on the streets, like phones on the streets. I'd go to Nottingham, Derby, travel all over, sign people on the streets for mobile phones. I feel like that for me was when I left at the age of 16. I remember I shoplifted all my bottom drawer. They used to call it a bottom drawer that you save for stuff. Me and my mum, we was close, we was very alike. We was too similar. She was a hustler. She was like, she hustled to whatever she got. She was a single mom with 5 kids. My dad owned a hotel in London. She lived a high life. She used to get like cakes from Harrods in the morning. He used to shake a tray of jewelry because people used to pay with jewelry from foreign countries. All the Arabs would come over and buy jewelry. They used to shake a tray and she'd say, yella, yella, like, and she would choose. So like even the bracelet I've got now is from that tray. It's like an Israeli bracelet. But for me, from my mum used to telling me stories like this to then lose everything, lose him, and then go back to Leicester to a council house, moving in with my nana, not have nothing to start all over again. It's like you've had and you've lost and you're starting from the ground up. And I never seen any of that life because I wasn't born. So obviously because he died a month before I was born. So I feel like growing up, I always looked around and watched what we had and thought, this isn't enough for me. I want more. And it wasn't, I feel like I was greedy because I valued and I appreciated everything we had. Like I would clean up so much, even though we had the dark brown council tiles with no flooring on, we would clean them tiles like that was flooring. And I think growing up like that, it makes you appreciate life, but you will graft and you won't mind putting the work in, putting the hours in. So I feel like, and it sounds like not cringy or like big headed in a way where I feel like because I grew up as a fifth, with like a family of 5, and then Simon's from a family of 10. We've always had big families around us. So 4 children to me. So it's a hard work. Everything's hard work. Being a mom itself is hard work. Having a business is hard work. Doing a degree is hard work. It's juggling and finding balance. And it's finding balance where children need structure. You have to be organised. Like I'll get up in the morning, 6:30, 7:15, make packed lunches, get the kids ready. But like I'll do all my ironing on a Saturday and a Sunday. And people are like, oh, you can't always be that structured. But yes, I am very regimented. And I feel like, in a way where you say, I'm like the captain of my own ship. If the captain goes down, the sink will ship. It's as simple as that. And I have to keep this ship sailing. And I feel like with my mum, growing up, she was very tough on us, where we had to do chores. We was never really allowed out. we had curfews. If I was going out, my friend used to come round and help me clean the kitchen before I was even allowed out. These times it's like 6:30, 7:15. We're like, we've only got an hour left to play out. She'd be like, well, I don't care, go and play Kirby. So, but I'm glad my mum brought me up like that, because that made me not, even though we roamed a little bit, and I was that person, she taught me life skills. And I feel like the skills that you learnt through your parents, that transitions you into parenthood. So I could live off £10. We would be able to like cook corned beef and rice with sweet corn that would last us 2 days. So my mum taught us how to live, like not able to survive, but parent from a young age, how to clean, cleanliness. She taught us independent life skills. And I feel like when you have children, you literally go into that mother mode straight away, where you have to keep house and home clean, cook. You want them to be in bed, bath, like the freebies, bath, book and bed by 9 o'clock, because they need structure, they need routine. So, but it's not easy. I'm not even going to lie and say it's easy, like, but I just feel like because I've always been a busy person and I don't really, yeah, if I sit down, like, or I'll scroll or do catch up on admin, or if I found something on Netflix to watch. But for me, keeping busy has given me, like, I've always strived for success because I never stop. Mental health rings true to me because watching my mum, watching my brother, watching my sister, my other brother, I think being in a family where you live mental health and it's not taught through a textbook. Like, I grew up with my mum taking diazepam, temazepam, zopiclone. God, my sisters took pregabalins, piracy. I've just been around medication, seen my brother take drugs. You kind of understand. I'm very non-judgmental, where we can't go through life judging people, as in where everybody, I feel, deals with mental health, and they're gonna some form of life in their life, whether that be grief, loss, relationships, divorce, money problems. We all suffer with mental health, but it's just something that triggers you and pushes you over the edge to completely go through a traumatic experience where you lose yourself, probably stop doing personal care, stop being able to cope with day-to-day activities, daily life, like getting up, brushing your teeth, washing your face, getting dressed, doing that day-to-day activities where people do. So that suffers from depression, anxiety, staying in bed. I've seen my mom do that. There was a time where I like to rest my mom's, rest in peace, and I feel like if I never lived with what I lived with, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I feel like there was a time when I was about 14 or 15, and she stayed in bed and she didn't cook Christmas dinner. And I thought, well, we've got to have dinner. So, and I think she was drunk, so she was drinking and she was just sleeping. And I just was trying to wake her up, and I just said, you know what, I'll cook. And I remember ringing my friend's mom, and then I kind of cooked the dinner and my sister helped. So but we never, we did sit in the bed. I remember we were sitting in the bed, me and my younger sister, Marla. My name is Malika, I'll call her Marla. We was watching Coronation Street 11 and we was crying, thinking this is our Christmas. And I just got up and I was like, no, this isn't our Christmas. Fuck that. We're going to do something else. I'm going to cook dinner. We're not going to have a Christmas like this. And I feel like because I've suffered, well, not suffered, or I've seen and dealt with childhood trauma, that it gave me the strength to do what. But I'm glad my mum made me this way, because out in this world, it's not easy. And it is a big, bad world out there. And I feel like teaching people life skills is hard. It's hard to do now. So, and then choosing the mental health degree, I was doing the aesthetics degree, obviously, hence the aesthetic clinic. And then after I did my first year, and then I was thinking, this is not going to give me no medical legislations or licenses. And if anything happens, I'm going to struggle. So that's why I love this for us. The life of me. Oh, God. So I lost my mum January 29th. But with my mum, I don't feel like I'm not healed. I don't think I'm ever going to heal. When people say every day it gets easier, that's bullshit. Every day you learn to adjust. I'm going to get emotional now. You learn to adjust, and I haven't had time to heal from my mum because when she passed, all the pressure, everything was on me, where I had to think about her funeral. And it wasn't that I just took control because I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for her. So I naturally took control thinking, no, you're going to do it wrong. You're going to do it wrong. You're going to do it wrong. I'm her daughter. I need to protect her. And I kind of went into protective mode. Again, a survival of the survival mode, survival instinct, because we've always lived like that. I wanted to protect her because I couldn't protect her, because I couldn't save her, I couldn't help her. And that's all a story in itself, because my mum died from stress through her heart. She died of cardiac arrest. They said it was plaque around her heart, but that's due to a family member being at court, and she was on a court case. And I know the stress killed my mum. And even that, like, the family's it's broken our family down. It's never going to be the same. Nothing's never going to be the same, because no matter how we word this, I've lost my mum through this bullshit. And she was, I wouldn't say she had health problems, but she had problems with like asthma or breathing, things like that. But that day that I got that phone call, obviously that changed my life forever. But it's the fact of I've never really been able to heal because I took control and everything over at a funeral. I had the pressure of planning, organising, raising the money, doing a lot, but I chose it myself because I wanted to make sure it was perfect for her. I'm not letting anyone give her a shit funeral. She ain't having a shit casket. She ain't having this. Whatever it was, she can have. And it was more to the fact that even with everybody's funeral, everyone talks about, or they'll have their opinion, or they'll say it needs to be like this. No, you have to do it for the person and how they would want it. You have to forget about yourself, forget about being selfish. It's not about me or you or who. It's about what they would want and what they would. You have to think about everything for them. No one ever sits down and says, I want this song played at my funeral. I want this. I mean, if you do, yeah. But we was never a morbid family. And I always find that very morbid to talk about death. And you always avoid speaking about it. So for me, I've never, like, obviously I've got my mum even tattooed on me. So because it's close to me, I want to just hear it with me. But we only just started getting our relationship because obviously I got kicked out at the age of 16. I was a rebel. Yeah, I was called Shadia the baddie. My mum couldn't handle me sometimes. The police was coming, like, I got arrested for, oh God, this is another story, when I was with my ex-partner for like this bloody whole situation. And my mum was like, it's too much. I don't think she could handle me. And it was causing her too much stress. So obviously I got kicked out at 16. I rented a little flat. Like, everywhere I lived, though, I always like had everything I could possibly get for myself. But I remember, like, all the stuff I'd saved in my bottom drawer, she threw that out in a black bag because we had an argument. And I remember I saved and I had all these lamps and plates and all this stuff, and she threw my black bag in the back garden and everything smashed. And I was just like, I hate you. I will never talk to you again. And I just said, I'll never come back here again. And that was at the age of 16. And how many years later, we finally started like really getting along, building our relationship. I'd speak to her every day. There was a time I never spoke to her for like a year. Like, I just stopped talking to her because with me, I have to protect my energy. And if I feel like people are around me that are draining me, or it's not about bringing anything to me, if they drain what energy I already have, because I have to use it for so many other things by myself, I have to protect that, and I will just cut you out of my life like I've never known you. And unfortunately, I did that with my mum. And now I wish I never did that in a way. But I just feel like I couldn't protect her. I couldn't save her. And maybe that's why I've gone into mental health as well, because I feel like I put myself last before everyone else. And I always try to save people or help people. Maybe that's why I did the aesthetics, because I like making people feel nice about themselves or happy. And I always tried to please my mum growing up. Like, I always cleaned, I always cooked. At Christmas times, I remember we used to sometimes would go shoplifting. I'd even take the bag out we used to go to Woolworths and fill the bag up with toys because we couldn't. There was no other way. We couldn't. My mum was on her own with 5 kids. She didn't have nobody helping her, no man giving her no funds towards her children. Obviously, my dad had passed away, so it was hard growing up. I'm not even gonna lie, but as a family, we stuck together and that was our family, whether it was dysfunctional, whether we didn't have much, but she made sure she could provide and give us as much as she could. So I feel like that's why, with me being the way I am, I strive for so much because I want to be so far away from that. You know what I mean? Molly was always the little princess and she was always the favourite. She's from a different dad. And I feel like because Molly was never told she never knew who her dad was. My mum never said anything, like she wasn't with her dad. And Molly was always, she was never really slapped or, because I was battered growing up. I got battered. I was bad. My mum beat me. I was like the one who got the beating. My mouth didn't stop. She used to call me rent a gob, rent a mouth. And grumble, but I know she loved me so much because she used to say I was a love child. And I feel like my mum had so much trauma even from then, losing my dad. She was like battered. She had like such a heart, not from my dad growing up. She was like left for dead. She was raped. My mum had a shit life, really, as growing up. Like she's had her ups and downs, but she had a hard life. And she did her best being who she was with 5 children on her own. So, that's why she had mental health. She suffered. She had childhood trauma. She had traumas growing up. And I feel like when you live it and you see and she still tried to give us the best. Like I remember I went on a school trip once and my trainers was like shit and everyone was wearing Fila trainers at the time. And I was like, oh, I just wanted some trainers, like some new ones. And then she was like, I can't afford to get any in. I was like, don't worry about it, Mum, it's okay. And I remember she had a catalogue. And then I came home from school and she said, look behind the sofa. And she got me the Fila trainers, these white ones. And I literally used to clean them with a toothbrush and everything. Like they was like my trainers that I kept. But it's like all the little things, the memories. But then it wasn't always like sad and we never had much. Like my mum at Christmas, she provided. She gave us all what she could. But where I've grown up in that way, it's made me want to achieve and get a lot out of life. And you know what I always say, you always have 2 paths or 3. You'll have that path or that path. And it's easy. I could have been a lap dancer, prostitute. I could have been on the alcoholic route. I could have took drugs, but I didn't want to. I went so far away from that. I went that way because I was so driven for success. So, and it's like, I don't want to say it's like such a sad story, but unfortunately, you don't pick your family who you're from. My mum never asked for that upbringing. She never asked for the trauma that she had to deal with. And we was just like our little merged family together. But we made it work. We made it happen. But then obviously my brother drinking and smoking, that was stress to my mum. She just constantly had stress. And I feel like you have to, I remember sitting there watching my mum sometimes and just feeling like I'm helpless. I can't help you. Because them times I was only like 11 or 12. But it, I feel like with me now, that's why I'm so driven because I want to be so far away from that life, if that makes sense. And I know my standards are so high and I know I'm going to get so much out of life and I will achieve it. Inshallah, I know I will. Even more so now, my mom's pushing me, my brother's guiding me, my dad's guiding me. Like, you can be your own force to reckon with and you're your own person standing in front of that mirror saying that you can't do this. No, you can. You can do anything you put your mind to. If you want to jump on that degree or that course, go for it. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. Don't tell anyone you're going to do it until you do it. Just do it. Because a lot of outside opinions, unsolicited opinions, can throw you off track. When you start telling people what you're going to do, oh, I don't think you should do that. Oh, you really think you should do that? Oh, you got 4 kids. Oh, that's too much. No, I ain't listening to you, you or you. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if I feel like I can handle it, I'll handle it. So this year for me, I mean, after losing my mum, which is only January 29th last year, and then I split up with my partner of 17 years in the June. And I feel like that's just because that's a part of my healing. I just need to be on my own. I need any negativity away from me. I need to do me. And I've done me for everybody else for so many years. Like, and especially because she's not here now. And I always tried to please her and do for her. So now in a way, I'm being selfish for me, my kids, and myself. So if I want to have like cereal, for instance, I don't want to cook dinner, I say, this is the year of the yes. I'm going to have cereal for dinner. Nobody's telling me no different. But for me, like, if I want to go on holidays or do things to me, or if I don't want to go to work that day, or I'm not going to have anyone else control my life or myself. So I'm doing for me and I'm putting myself forward. So if I feel like I want to do something, I'm doing it. And more to the point where now life is so short where you really have to enjoy every moment that you get, even with your kids. Just enjoy life. If there's festivals, go, enjoy, do it. Birthdays, parties, whatever. Like, this year for me is just a yes year. And I'm going to do everything that I want to do that makes me happy. I still feel like I'm in a blur and I live in a bubble where it's kind of hard to explain, like, as in, with grief, you don't expect it to happen unless somebody's been told they're dying and what have you and whatever. But still, you have to deal with that. It's something we don't deal with all the time on a daily. So when we're hit with it, everybody deals with it differently. And when people say, oh, we'll get better with time and all the rest of it, no, it's got nothing to do with that. Everybody's different. Some people, it can make them like quite intrinsically ill. So internally, externally, like where they suffer so much where they can't deal with life on a daily after losing like a loved one. That's why sometimes when you hear of people like where they've been married for so many years, they pass away and then shortly later their husband dies because they can't internally deal with it. Like they feel their heart's broken, that they actually can't survive. But I feel like for me, losing my mum that was like a big shock and a U-turn for me in my life, where I actually thought, fuck this. I am not, excuse my swearing, but I am not going to be going through my life unhappy in any way forward. Like, I can't do it because I was talking to her that morning and I'm so glad I spoke to her that morning. But the fact that I could be just talking to her and then bam, she's gone. Like, it's a so real moment, like, where you just think, wow, like, that person's actually gone. Like, they've gone. They're in the ground. They're gone. Their souls, they've just gone. And for that, it's so hard to grasp that I can't speak to her. I can't talk to her. I can't do the things that I did only now, just obviously building a relationship. Because she's seen my kids and she had them sometimes, but not as much as she could have been like as a grandma. And I yearned for that. But we just started to get back together, like our closeness. And I feel like for me, when you grieve someone, it's like that's a life-changing moment in your life, like especially your mom or your dad, because it's like that's your main caregiver. So, but I feel like that was a big turning point in my life where I have no other option, Nathaniel. Like, I can only live my life now where I have to deal with this as a day to day and adjust with it. But with that trauma, you can either let it eat you up inside and lay in bed every day and be depressed or drink or anything else. Or you can turn it around and say, you have left me now. You are guiding me. You are watching me. And I am guaranteeing you, Mum, I am going to show you what I can become. I'm going to make you so proud. I'm going to make your grandkids be like successful, show them the way, show them that path, and do everything it's not better than what she did, because she did what she could for me, what with the tools she had. But now it's like I'm her DNA. I'm like, in a way, a better version of her. So I'm going to utilize what you gave me. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the life that I've lived, for that trauma that you showed me, for that. Because if anything, it's made me hungrier. So now I'm hungry. I'm a beast. Aesthetics world, I'm coming for you. So for me, she's only made me a better version of me. And now with losing her, it's like I have not a point to prove to myself, but I can't give up, and I can't give up on my kids. So I have to continue. And I feel like for people going forward, like, as like you said, any advice, somewhere down in the bottom of your stomach or your soul, you have to dig so deep, because something is in there to make you push, and you'll find it. But there's days, don't get me wrong, I can't always be a 10. And there is days where I feel like I'm at a 1, where I feel like, oh, I can't do this. And everyone will feel like they can't do this, where I feel like, what am I doing? Can I do this? Like questioning myself, or this is hard. And everything in life is going to be hard, where you'll have obstacles, hurdles thrown at you. But once you've jumped over them and you've carried on, you'll be able to succeed in anything you do in life.
It's a wrap for Shadia and Nathaniel.
Dodo, bed.
Everybody paint that perfect picture in their head, the way life's supposed to be, but what's a dream inside your head? That very picture fuck you up time and time again. I lost friends by choice, cause they weren't ready enough as men, but who's not ready? Sail inside my ship and I ain't sinking, not a dip. I've been waiting for the weekend, cause this week has been a myth. They call it alcoholism, but me just like a drink. They say it takes patience, and as that liquor starts to hit, you start to deep all your relations and then past violations that you've taken. Cause it's family, but they treat you like you ain't shit. A holocaust, I ain't messing with these beat makers. Need production that could rock a baby to sleep like he's in a manger. With my angels, I ain't in fear, no life danger. If you're a pagan, you're a stranger.